This is going to be true regardless of what type of marketing you're doing. If this represents your target market, right? So let's assume this is the entire target market right here. This is the segment of that market that's ready to buy right now, right? So the most attention from your competitors is being paid to this little tiny piece of the market, right? And these are the ones who are ready to buy today. And so I don't think you should neglect these people by any means, but I do think we can all agree that if we're trying to market exclusively to these people like every single other competitor out there, it's kind of hard. And if we look at it, that little circle is a whole lot smaller than this big circle. Now, who's in this big circle? People who are in this big circle are the folks who are thinking about buying probably in the next 45 to 60 days. So it could be tomorrow, or it could be 45 to 60 days from now. In fact, like that segment of the marketplace is probably this big, and then this outer segment are people that just ain't gonna buy anything, right? This circle right here, a lot bigger than this circle. Where do you think the money is? The money is in this circle, right? The people who are getting ready to buy, but just might not be ready to buy immediately today. Am I saying stop trying to sell to these people? Nope, not saying that. I'm saying this bigger circle that has the majority of the money is terribly neglected. So while all your competition is trying to get this little pile of money, this big pile of money right here, nobody's paying attention to it. You know what's funny? What do you think people in this big pile right here that are thinking about buying, what do you think they're doing right now? They're looking at their options. They're trying to find out everything they can about the stuff that you sell. They're probably comparing your stuff to your competitor's stuff. They're trying to formulate a decision. So doesn't it make sense that if we can help them formulate this decision, that when it's time, when they enter this little circle, they're going to want to come to us anyway, no matter how hard and how aggressively your competition is marketing to them? My experience says yes. I have $790,000 and counting that are saying yes to that. So the question becomes, how do we sell to both, right? So really the question is this: how do we educate and motivate this bigger portion of the market while making sure that the people who are in this little portion are always hearing about us and constantly ready to buy? And the answer is in a method of marketing that's called intent-based branding, which I really should have come up with a cooler sounding name for. Essentially, it is branding with the intention of getting a sale. That's what that name means. It's not branding like get your name out there. It's branding done in a way where you're helping your marketplace and you're constantly making an offer. It has 3 pillars to it, okay? Pillar number 1 is content. All right, so if you're thinking about how do you market your business, what I'm giving you right now, this is content, right? So pillar number 1 is content. We want to put out a lot of content, right? In intent-based branding, we're putting out content almost every day, and there's a formulaic way to do it. But this content is different than typical social media content. So we're not ever talking about us. We're not talking about what we had for breakfast or any of that kind of stuff. We're not trying to be cool, right? Instead, every single thing that we ever produce using intent-based branding is about your prospect. And more importantly, it is about what your prospect wants and how they get it. So if you know what your prospect wants and how they get it, you're never going to be at a loss for what to say in your content. That's one way this method is different. The second way that this method is different is that every piece of content you ever produce, it does these 3 things. Number 1, it provides value. It is deliberately designed to help that person who's in that bigger circle, who's thinking about buying something. It is designed to help them come to the conclusion that your stuff is the right stuff to buy by giving them value in advance of giving you any money. So they're having this natural decision where they're thinking to themselves, I like this person, they're helping me, this is pretty cool, you know, I think I'm going to do business with them. That's what we're doing here. We're using the oldest trick in the book, which is called the demonstrate you can help them by actually helping them trick. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is to always build goodwill, which I'll just abbreviate here as W or GW. We're always building goodwill. Here's why. The amount of money that we make is in direct proportion to the amount of value that we provide to our marketplace and the amount of goodwill that we have with that marketplace. Remember, I'm defining the marketplace as that big circle of people who are thinking about buying some stuff, the type of stuff that you sell, maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow, a couple months from now. The more value we give to them and the more goodwill we have with them, the more they like you, the more they're going to be likely to buy from you. Kind of common sense. Thankfully, not a lot of people that market and advertise really think about it that way. They're more like, hey, I exist, give me money. We're not doing that, right? We're helping them out. The third thing here is every piece of content makes an offer, right? You let them know, hey, I have something that might help you. If you want it, here's what you should do. And you do that in every single piece of content. So this content is different. All right, it's dramatically different than typical social media content where you're trying to talk about how cool you are, or randomly post stuff that's completely irrelevant or whatever. This is always genuinely beneficial to people, and it's always making an offer. By the way you make an offer using this strategy, which again, this brought in $790,107 because every piece of content that I'm producing, it makes an offer. But it's not like, hey, you got to buy this stuff right now. The offer is always very passive and always very casual, like this. If at any point during this presentation you like this and you're like, hey, I kind of want to learn a little bit more about this, there's a button you can press to book a time, to talk to my team, to brainstorm some ideas on how to use this methodology to build your brand. And if you like that conversation, I have some training that takes a deeper dive in how to do it. And if you don't want the training, no problem. See, that's how we make an offer in these. It's not like high pressure. Nobody wants that, In fact, if someone's thinking about doing business with you, the more you try to pressure them, the more they're likely to kind of step away from you. So we always make this very, very friendly. Now, the second pillar of intent-based branding is based on the fact that the content that you produce today, that you create today, can be reused in the future. All right? So, since December 1st, I brought in $790,107 and counting in revenue just from doing this, right? Putting out free content that makes a really soft, regular, mellow offer, right? I don't live on social media. One of the misconceptions about doing this is people would think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to be on social media 24/7. I'm going to have to be a Kardashian. Right? And, I don't know about you, I'd love to have Kardashian money, but I don't feel like, as a 46-year-old middle-aged guy, I don't feel like being on camera all day with my phone out, being on social media. So what happens is in intent-based branding, we create a piece of content on one day, might take 15, 20 minutes. There's a strategy we have called content compounding, which allows you to take that content and then repurpose it across Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and podcasts. And when you understand the power of that what what you produce today can then continue to work for you, you realize that if you start doing this stuff and you've been at it for about 30 days, you're going to end up with so much more content that is helpful, providing value, that is generating goodwill, and is making an offer. You're going to end up with so much more of that than anybody else in your marketplace. And again, if we just think about this logically, the amount of revenue that we generate in a business is always going to be proportional to how much value we have, how much goodwill we have with the marketplace, and how many offers you make. So that's the second pillar of this thing. The third pillar is optional, and that's advertising. All right? And so here's how this is really, really cool. When we produce this content, and by producing content, by the way, I mean standing in front of someone holding a phone and talking, right? So it's nothing fancy. Like this video right now is clearly not professionally shot. This is being shot on an iPhone. It still counts as producing content. I'm not telling you to go Hollywood every day. In fact, we've tested it. The less fancy looking it is, the better it works, all right? But what you can do after you've been doing this methodology for about 30 days or so is you can go back and you can look and you can say, which one of my posts got the most engagement and brought me in the most business? And you'll look and you'll say, okay, there's typically going to be about 4 or 5 of them that are really, really good. And what you want to do is you then take those 4 or 5 and you turn them into ads. And when you do that, now again, this is completely optional. Like all this, 790,107, this came from this half of the line. This is all free, right? We didn't buy any ads to generate that revenue. But once you do, if you choose to get into the ad game, you have 2 things going for you. Number one, you're running ads that are probably going to work because it already worked for you for free, right? That's thing number one. Thing number 2 is this is how you really build a brand. When you run ads showing people content that A, produces revenue, B, produces goodwill, and C, produces a lot of value in the marketplace, your brand just grows that much faster. That's how you get to the point where you are everywhere, right? Where you're all over the place.